Okay, everyone. So welcome back to Being Integrated. I'm joined by my friend here, Avi. And Avi is not only a friend of mine, I originally met him through my school. He was one of my teachers, instructors. And I gotta say, Avi, your classes were the ones I looked most forward to. There was you and like one other instructor who I would always learn so much in your classes, and you would come and really show up like full-heartedly to each class, and you really cared. Like you could tell you are so passionate about healing and growth, and that's why I think we really connected. Obviously, we became
Mm.
friends after, is because we both really love this stuff, and we're both really interested in like the edge of all of these things and finding new ways and just like what is possible, right? Not just sticking to the old paradigm, but to really look at what the collective needs are and how we can like pull from different arenas and approaches to really address what we all need. So thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming. And I'm really excited for this topic. So the topic is porn addiction, right? And what is so great about your approach is it's really unique and it addresses the root causes. And I think that for me, that's always the issue. It's like um, you can manage your symptoms, and managing symptoms is hugely great, important skill, valuable skills to learn. But if we're not addressing the root causes, we're always going to be, kind of fighting away those symptoms. And if we were looking for real transformation, we really want to understand what is at the core of this habit or of this addiction. And I feel like you really address that and you've created a whole program, eroshealing.com, where you've made like a really in-depth approach available. So yeah, do you want to tell us a bit about your story and eroshealing.com and how it all came to be?
Sure. So it's great to be here. It's so amazing that I could speak to you in Costa Rica from Canada. So I'm still amazed by that. And yeah, I'm happy to share how this website, eroshealing.com, got to be created. Started very personally with my own personal struggle with pornography, which started in my 20s and was kind of a big secret in my life because I, you know, was very involved in a lot of different healing communities and therapy communities. But this is one thing that didn't really get talked about, something that I felt like was carrying a lot of shame about. And I was pretty hooked on porn and right from my mid-20s into my 30s, and would watch as kind of a way to self-soothe. And didn't really know how to approach like seeking out help. I was in therapy and all that, but even I didn't really know how to work with this issue at all. And I had the very great fortune in my 30s of meeting a very gifted healer who specialized in sexuality and working with not just how to change behavior, but how to get at the emotional roots behind behavior, especially pornography addiction, pornography overuse, which is so incredibly common nowadays. And I thought this person would teach me how to stop, overusing pornography. Actually, she taught me all about how sexual energy flows in my own body and how sexual energy can often split and disconnect from the heart, that we can often split from our own emotional center, and our sexuality can take us for like a loop when it's not integrated into our heart, into our emotions. So we went on a journey, a healing journey, to address the pornography overuse through integrating that sexual energy with heart, with emotion. And I didn't have to try or willpower my way to stop it. Just the cravings dissipated on their own after we'd been working for a while, because I was more integrated on that level. I was not splitting off into fantasy. I was actually learning how to integrate my sexual energy and my sexuality in my own body, in my own mind. And that was kind of an inside out approach to pornography, which is not really talked about. It's a lot of the conversation nowadays is about how to stop the behavior, which, like you said earlier, it's important. It's an important conversation. How do we address the problem like compulsive behavior around porn? But if we're not going to deal with the emotional root, where you can change the behavior and still have intense cravings. So it's like you have to, in a certain way, discipline and willpower yourself, which is a lot of work. So you might as well just go right to the emotional root and get there if that speaks to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you. Because you had your own challenge that you overcame, but you're also like a full-time practicing psychotherapist. So I'm sure you've helped a lot of people. I'm curious, like what you see are the commonalities as far as the challenges go. Like what are the big challenges and how do you work with that? When somebody comes to you, like what is the first thing you look at and work with them with?
Well, it's really interesting because if we're looking at our vices, our addictions, our struggles as poetry, which I really like, looking at things poetically, pornography overuse, if you think about what it is, it's a visual process where you're consuming through your eyes. You're consuming an image, a pixel through your eyes, and that's creating something in your body and your being. And I'm not speaking about just pleasure, but when somebody gets hooked on porn where they want to stop and they can't stop, it's like a problem to stop. It's like it becomes compulsive and it's used as a way to self-soothe, to self-medicate. So if we're looking at this struggle of pornography overuse from a poetic lens, what happens when most people who get hooked on porn, when they indulge, it's like it brings a sense of aliveness, a sense of like electricity into the body. And that's where that's the thing that keeps drawing many people back to the screen. So to work with it, we got to look exactly at what the in the engaging with porn, like what are you trying to do? It's like you're trying to feel alive. You're trying to feel your vitality. And so rather than sort of shame people about that and say, no, that's bad, or, you shouldn't watch pornography, it's like, oh, okay, how can we tap into our aliveness, but in a grounded way, in a way that's not where you don't have to depend on a screen to do that. And also the thing about pornography overuse is it's like you need more of it to feel, it's like you need to keep consuming, right? To feel grounded and to feel alive. And so how do you feel alive and in your true element, but in a way that's grounded? So porn points at our aliveness. It actually points at something that we're trying to do, but it doesn't teach us how to do it. And that's where we get hooked. It gives a little taste, but then you want more. So you go and consume more. What if we were to flip the whole thing and say, well, how do you actually, how do you cultivate that aliveness without porn? And that was what my healing journey looked like. It was very much a journey of finding my own aliveness, so that I didn't need porn anymore. I could find my vitality, aliveness in other ways.
Amazing. So the course you've created, like it's a program, right? And it is essentially giving people the practices to find their own aliveness. Like how did you create, like, I'm doing my own ADHD course right now. I'm almost done, but it's this like challenge of like, okay, well, everybody's so unique, but there are these commonalities. So I'm wondering like how you approach this idea of like, these are the practices that are most fundamental.
No, it's a great question. It's a really good question. And the courses that you're referring to, it's a video-based resource. It's essentially a self-help site with very experiential videos that give practices about how to work with pornography overuse. And so, it's it's definitely not a substitute for therapy, definitely not a substitute for counseling. So I really encourage people, and I actually put it on every single page of the website, to seek counseling and mental health services, therapy, because this is not like in place of that. This is an incredible supplement to it, because it's the thing about sexual energy. It moves and it flows in very specific ways in the body, as documented by so many traditions like yoga, like Ayurveda, like Taoist medicine, traditional Chinese medicine, many mindfulness practices. Sexual energy is its own territory. And to answer your question of how do you do that for like in a general public kind of a way? Well, what we know, what these traditions teach us about sexual energy, is that their sexual energy gets generated at our pelvis and genitals. There is that raw, when somebody goes to watch porn, there's like a raw desire nature. Like, in a yoga tradition, they would say your root chakra is activated. So it's like there is this charge at the pelvis and the genitals. And what that sexual energy wants to do, it wants to flow and move through the entire body, mind, and bring us into our aliveness and vitality. And so the way I've crafted this website is to help people identify where they're getting blocked sexually. So as sexual energy starts to move up into our core, into our channel, what it does, and this is, whether you're struggling with porn or not, this is kind of happening for all of us. But what it does is it activates everything that's in our core. So if we have emotional blocks or old wounds and all of that life force, that sexual energy, will activate that and awaken that and open that, so we can deal with it, and so we can work through it, and then the energy can integrate into our heart and move through. So the site is essentially helping us slow down enough to see what's happening with our sexual energy. Where is it getting blocked in our body and mind, and how do we tend to that? How do we address that? Again, not as a substitute for therapy, but as kind of like a real practice, And how do we also ground ourselves so our sexual energy doesn't take us for a ride? Because the nature of our sexuality is wild. And so we need to come back into the present moment when we work with our sexuality, because it can easily just take us for a spin. So it's a lot of grounding, listening in, and integrating sexual energy into the heart and into our whole body.
Interesting. Yeah. And I found it interesting what you said about like how you recommend therapists, and then you recommend therapy as along with the course. But part of my, what I thought, I was like, a lot of therapists don't know how to work with this. It's not common knowledge, right? But I can see now, as you were explaining, how that energy activates all of our old kind of wounds, all of our old emotional stuck points. And so as we're doing this work of trying to like channel this energy and allow it to kind of flow through, it's like those other things are going to come up. So even if the therapist doesn't have a knowledge around like, how to kind of work with kind of what you could say stuck sexual energy or porn addiction, that through your course, you can kind of learn how to move it yourself. But then what it brings up is stuff that you bring to therapy.
Exactly. That's exactly right. That's it. And so that's why, the challenge of doing an online, I haven't done any, I'm not a big online person, but so to do an online course is like, how do you do that and make it effective, but not make it, because it is not therapy. So it is exactly what you said. It sort of helps you open the can of worms, and then you go and you deal with that. And whether it's therapy or it could look like different things. You might have a different healing practice that you bring that to. Yeah. But I recommend therapy because it's where you can really get into the nuts and bolts of the deeper emotions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I just have to kind of say as well, though, it's like, in an ideal world, we would all have excellent therapists that we could all afford. And then the
Yes.
reality is that not everybody has access. Not everybody can find a good therapist. There are a lot of, not so great therapists out there. And then also not everyone can afford therapy. And I see this online in all these other kind of communities, people trying, 4 or 5 different therapists, and none of them really being able to land with, or just not being able to afford it, so anyways, there's a whole kind of a lot of potential barriers for people. But I think
Yes.
that even when you can't afford therapy, there is so much out there. There are so many resources that we can use to help us. And I think that this is the power of your course. This is why, I started my YouTube channel. It was during the pandemic, where it was like there was this kind of collective mental health crisis. And I was like, okay, I want to try to offer something. And yeah, so I feel like even without the therapy, it's like we can really, what I see is like people somehow manage to grow and heal through their lives very often, and some parts can remain stuck if they don't want to go there. And of course, a therapist can dramatically improve this, but like we're all kind of growing and healing organically. And so I don't want to be discouraging to the people who can't afford or don't have access to a therapist.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that was exactly one of the things that I was thinking of when I created this site was there is a huge barrier, economic, geographic, so many barriers. And like you say, not every therapist understands how to work with pornography overuse in a really non-shaming and sex positive way. Like, so yeah, so in a perfect world, you could access therapy and access the resource and access that. But if we're looking at, because therapy is only what, a couple hundred years old at most. Before therapy ever existed, which is not that long ago, how did people get initiated into their sexuality? How did people learn how to ground, channel, and flow with their sexual energy? Because that's really at the heart of what this whole thing is. What do you do with this wild energy? Because the thing that if you're not mentored and not given really good sex education, not just about safe sex or how to have sex, but sex education in the energetic sense of like, what is this thing called sexuality? How is it just about who we desire, or is it something actually very connected to our spirituality, to our creativity? So in pre-therapy world, you go to like a mentor, an elder, somebody who had knowledge and this is cross-cultural, but in cultures all around the world, people were mentored in puberty, what was happening with their body. And for girls going through puberty, it's like there was the menstrual cycle begins. That's an initiation. The body is initiating you into puberty. For men, it's not that simple. So there's a lot more, in a certain way, mentoring that was required, because we don't have, as men, we don't have like a natural monthly cycle that connects us to nature. So it's like, so there would be rituals and rites of passage and mentoring that would teach people how to awaken to their sexuality. And so there's so many other, you're right, there are multitudes of ways to access, but what we've lost are the mentors who can teach us about how to work with our sexual energy, which is why I felt so blessed to find a mentor who was saying to me, no, don't focus just on the behavior. Don't focus on just how do I stop watching porn. Focus on what actually is going on as your what is this pornography overuse? What is it pointing at in your own being? How is your sexual energy not flowing? And here's how to work with it. So that kind of mentorship. So it definitely can look like that. It doesn't just have to be therapy, for sure.
Okay. Yeah, great. Very, very insightful. So I know you have some free stuff on your website as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's over an hour of free content, there's a free article all about how to work with all of this stuff, quote unquote, all how to work with sexual energy and how to use this kind of mind body method to go beyond, to quit porn. There's free videos, there's about an hour of
Okay.
free content.
Great. So I was going to ask for some tips, but I'm like, I'm sure you have it in that free stuff. And so I'm just going to leave it here. And then, and I'm going to link to that in the description so everyone can check that out.
Can I say one more thing?
Yeah. Let's hear.
I think it's really important to say this last thing because it's actually for people watching who might be struggling with porn or might know someone who is. The thing about sexual energy is when it goes out of balance in our body, it can only do one of two things when it's out of balance. It can spin out. So in other words, that sexual energy we get overwhelmed by it. We don't know what to do with it. It's like too much. So in our overwhelm, in our not knowing how to move our energy, express our energy, channel energy, we get overwhelmed. And so we can spin out. And spinning out means like the sexual energy takes us for a ride. Pornography overuse is one expression of that. It can look like very different things. Sex addiction is one, possible way, but it's like in a sense where we're chasing our own tail. We're spinning. Our sexuality is taking us for a ride. We don't have our sexuality. Our sexuality has us. That's the one way our sexuality goes out of balance. The other way is when we get overwhelmed by it, we clamp down on it. We try to shut it down. And that's like a repression of it. And so most people who struggle with pornography overuse actually vacillate between both polarities, between trying to control their sexual energy, trying to shut it down, and then it takes them for a ride. And then they go into a compulsive state. So the whole teaching here is how to integrate sexual energy so we're not being spun out by it, but we also don't have to clamp it down and control it. And the thing is, when your sexual energy is in balance, when your sexual energy is flowing, what many people will discover naturally without anyone telling them is our sexual energy is really not, who we desire, who we want to sleep with is one expression of that energy. But that energy is truly, when it's flowing, is all about our creativity. It's about how we connect with people on a heart-to-heart level. It's really about our how we bring our aliveness and life force into all of our relationships. And it's also about meaning and purpose. You spoke earlier about these times, being in these times right now, and the mental health crisis of the time. And, our sexual energy in again, all these traditions I named earlier, yoga, Ayurveda, traditional Chinese medicine, they refer to it as the life force itself. When our life force is flowing, we are naturally connected, more aligned to our purpose and to meaning, like sort of how we want to be in service to life itself. So it's so much more than who we desire. So I just thought I wanted to really say that at the end.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much. It was really great to have you on for this conversation. I feel like it is, like you said, like not under discussed, especially in these kind of group settings, because there's so much shame around it. And so it's amazing, and like much respect to you for being vulnerable and opening up and sharing your story. I think it will give a lot of other people permission to really look at it honestly and seek the help and try to transform their experience as you have. And last, thank you. I mean, Avi, you've been such an inspiration to me. And I know I've told you this before, but being one of my like teachers, I've always really admired and respected the way that you work, what you do. You really show up and you really care for people, and you're really an excellent teacher, an excellent therapist. I imagine. I've never been a client, but I imagine. So anyways, it's just an honor. So glad to have you on.
Ditto. It goes both ways. I really enjoy engaging with you, and I'm I really, what this your YouTube channel here is really important to put out these ideas and to bring mindfulness into the modern world, to take these beautiful practices and bring them into the world we're living in, and to talk about issues like pornography addiction and things like this that really are areas that we don't usually think of when we think of mindfulness and meditation. So it's like good work to bring, it's like you're anchoring something in. So thank you for that.
Thank you. So yeah,
Okay.
so thanks and viewers, thank you for watching. And if you like the video, like, subscribe, do all those things. And absolutely check out Avi's website and his offerings there.